Keirra Woodard. Fascinating perspective from this young lady. She's a marketer. She's a B2B, business to business marketer, specifically on software as a service, SaaS. She is migrating to another now. She did start a podcast, but we just talk about marketing, which is one of my passions. I started my tech firm a long time ago and got moved over to sales because natural progression, but I've always kind of looked over marketing and gained much more an appreciation for it in the last, in the last 10 years or so. But I ask key questions, the difference between marketing, how should sales and marketing be working together? What's branding? We always hear about branding and where does that fit in? Also talk about the future of marketing and AI. How is that? Her response is quite interesting, actually. She's excited and terrified at the same time, which is kind of a typical answer you hear now, isn't it? Also talk about she does a lot of podcasts and actually podcasting for marketing. Fascinating discussion. I really enjoyed it. Business to business versus business to consumer, BC. What's the difference there? But just really great perspective from Keirra. And discipline was a very interesting conversation, a unique perspective that I've never heard from. Over 300 plus conversations, never heard this answer from for discipline from Keirra. Thanks so much for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Very, very excited to talk to you, Keirra Woodard. Thank you so much for your time today. Why is B2B marketing so difficult?
It just is. Next question.
So nice to meet you.
I think it's difficult because B2B is just like more challenging. It's just you there's like this extra added level of professionalism that you have to have when you're interacting like only with people in the corporate world, as opposed to business to consumer marketing, where it's just like, oh, you have a product and then you can sell it to your friend, you can sell it to your neighbor. There's millions of people out there who it would be right for. Whereas like B2B, you gotta, there's all these interests, you got a specific industry. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, and business, it could also be small businesses too, where they're really watching their money and, but it could really help them. So the messaging has to be really clear, and it's challenging for a marketer like yourself.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So how do you tailor, is it important in marketing? So you specifically talk about SaaS platform, right? Software as a service. So when there is a SaaS, when somebody creates a SaaS platform, generally they have vertical markets that they pursue. It's in the dog grooming business, or it's in the, whatever it may be, therapy. So their market is already targeted, and then you kind of go after that market. But what happens if it's something kind of horizontal that can fit many different vertical markets? What's your challenge then when marketing?
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I encountered that with my last full-time job. So it was this kind of niche piece of software. It's like asset management
Ah.
space. And then there's like, 6 different industries the company was targeting with the same platform. So you have to like figure out how to do a marketing strategy that's kind of touching on all of those different
Mm.
industries. Like either you some I guess talking points kind of help with all of them at the same time, but then some of it you have to customize, and it's really tricky because you have to like learn this product but then also learn each industry and then each customer within each industry.
Wow.
um yeah. I
Wow.
guess the if I had to, if this is like an advice thing, I would say pick one industry.
Mm.
But I mean, as you grow and get bigger, you're going to end up breaking it out into multiple industries anyway. So I don't know if that even is advice that scales, but maybe one at a time would be helpful to at least like allowing the people on your team to know really in depth what the customer's struggling with. But then again, that
Mm.
might not be possible in every single startup because sometimes you just got to hit the ground running. So I don't know if there's a really good answer to that as other than just like try your best and then try to talk to um, people who actually work in these different industries as much as you can and like
Mm.
educate yourself as a marketer, and then put that out there, kind of guess and check.
Yeah, the whole boil the ocean, right? I mean, because startups need subscribers, they need revenue, so they're like, pick all these verticals, let's just go after them. This whole shotgun thing, and usually the people who create the platform aren't the best marketers. Then they need specialists like yourself to kind of say, well, wait a second, let's let's get really good at one, and then another maybe at another, and continue that way.
Hmm.
Is that really that's probably the best way, correct?
Um, it could be. It could be.
I guess it really depends on the platform itself.
Yeah. And it's hard to give like even blanket like advice for all
Mm.
types of different software companies because it depends on so much, including like the growth model. So there's different strategies which hopefully, the business owner, the business leader has come up with, um, to get into break into a marketplace. So there's some strategies where you kind of start like at the top. Maybe you want to start at the biggest uh companies that are out there, selling your software to them, and then work your way towards
Mm.
expanding it. But then there's other models where you maybe want to start with lots and lots of small businesses that you're selling like a lower ticket product to, and then you build in things like, um, they call it like viral growth hacking, things like
Hmm.
that, where you maybe it's like, one classic example is, I want to say Dropbox. I just like read about this. I wasn't like at Dropbox, but what they did initially was they would incentivize people by saying, "Oh, you can get so many extra gigabytes of storage space in, uh if in your Dropbox account if you refer a friend." And so that was enough to push people over the edge to referring a friend.
Mm.
And so it
Mm.
just kind of grew kind of virally from there. So it really
Hmm.
depends on what the product is, who you're selling it to, like where those viral growth opportunities might be. I'm sure there's a whole breakout, group of marketing advice that's just tailored around this, like the growth hacking and strategy. And I've learned about it piece by piece, like having interviewed different people on my podcast. So, um, my podcast just ran for over a year. It's called Forward Launch Your SaaS. I just recently rebranded it and changed the name to Mindful B2B Marketing because I'm opening it up to more than just SaaS. But essentially, I talked to lots and lots of different CMOs and VPs of marketing and CEOs of these SaaS companies. And, that's where I would just pick up kind of all of these different tips and how they're applying it in these different, industries and use cases, all within different SaaS companies.
Yeah, I really enjoy your podcast. You get some really good guests. And how close, in your mind, should sales be working with marketing?
Um, it's the conventional advice, like from the people that I talk to, is like, well, you want them to be integrated as much as possible. I mean, that tracks with me anecdotally working in a
Right.
marketing team that had to collaborate with the B2B sales team, because you can easily get into these little like pockets where you're only communicating with just the other people on your marketing team, as opposed to, cross collaboration. And it would be really helpful if there was a structure to collaborate between these different teams on a regular basis. Obviously, the leadership collaborating with each other is like one layer of it. And then,
Mm.
the different team members collaborating with each other is another layer that could be built in. So I've had several guests talk about how they have managed to integrate those more, and have gotten some really good results out of it. I can't speak to it personally because, like, my job for the last couple of years has just been doing freelance marketing. I help companies create podcasts. Um, so I don't want to say, oh, yes, this is the way and this is exactly how to do it. I'm just going to point you towards like some episodes of my podcast that could be helpful.
Yeah, because they work so close together, But the other issue, Keirra, I find is that they're compensated so differently.
Mm-hmm.
Sales and marketing, right? Sales generally has a base and commission, whereas marketing is generally just salary. Is that fair?
Um, fairness is a whole other question. There's two questions here. Like, one, does it work? And two, is it fair? Um, I mean, then you start really waxing philosophical about like the purpose of business and why you compensate people, and why people would be compensated differently within business. I don't know that I have a very strong opinion on this. Maybe it feels like I should, but I really don't, because there's like, as a business owner, I can see how there's different risk profiles for different jobs within your company. So with something like sales, um, it's hard to choose a person who is going to be really good at that. But it's
Mm.
also so critical that they are good at it. So I'm not saying it's the absolute best way to structure a sales team. Maybe we're just completely off the mark as an entire industry. I'm not even going to try to comment on whether it's a good thing. I'm just kind of pointing out pros and cons that I've seen or heard. So the pros of it are, you get a bigger payout if you actually do more deals, so you're compensated directly. Compensation is directly tied to the outcome, so it's very transparent on both ends for the employee and the company. Now, the downside of it is that, you never really know where your next sale is coming from. You can't really control the outcome. You can never control the outcome. You can only control your actions, and that's with
Mm.
everything. That's not just sales. So putting a lot of pressure on individuals to like actually get people to buy doesn't that can lead to some negative downstream consequences, because there's some ethical shortcuts you might start taking to make sure that those
Mm.
deals take place. There's some just sales pressure. If somebody comes up in your face, let's say you're just going to the grocery store and somebody's coming into your face like, do you want to buy this is really good, do you want to buy this? They're just following you around the store, checking back up with you every 5 minutes as you're just trying to do your shopping. You're like, whoa, okay, leave me alone, I don't even want to come to the store anymore. And that happens to a large scale in the B2B landscape. And a lot of that is
Hmm.
driven by like sales pressure and fear. So, what's the best solution to it? I don't know. People are going to have to experiment, but those are definitely the pros and cons of it. And I'm sure that there's policies you could implement to like take the pressure off your sales team and like put the pressure more on the system itself, and make sure people are following the system as opposed to like punishing them for an outcome they can't control.
Hmm.
I've also seen I'm a fan of Josh Braun. He's a like a sales coach person. I've done like some of his, online course. And he takes like a very like laid back 21st century quote unquote approach to sales, where you just get on conversations with people, and then you just kind of follow what they want to do, and just kind of suggest, oh well, typically if you're interested in this is how we would go further. If you're not, okay, I'll follow up with you in whenever you're comfortable with. And that kind of like relaxed approach diffuses what he calls the zone of resistance, and that's where people
Mm.
like freeze up and don't want to interact with the salesperson anymore. They're trying to just get away from you. um and so that's helpful. I On a local level, because I'm just like a one person business owner, I have experienced this with the sales conversation. So obviously I'm not on commission. I'm just like doing my own thing, and like it's easier to have these kind of interpersonal relationships. Like the more I change my mindset away from, oh, I need to make a sale, oh, I need money so I can do XYZ, and the more
Mm.
I curate my life and my business around, um I'm going to make sure my needs are taken care of independently outside of this, so that when I show up to a networking call or a sales call, it's like, of course I want you to buy, because it ideally it'll be good for both of us. But like if it's not, it is what it is. And like I
Mm.
think people can kind of like sense that on a subconscious level, if you're like, if you have their best interest at heart, like genuinely. And people comment on that with me at points. And then you can also like sense it within yourself, like, oh, I approached the sales conversation without any intentions of where it was going to go. And now there's no like, I could have done this better, or I should have followed up more. It's just kind of like, okay,
Mm.
great. No matter what the outcome was. So I think maybe the advice is like, do things in your personal life just to make sure, like, if at all possible, that when you show up to the sales conversation, you're not like hinging your own happiness on whether or not it'll turn out the way you want it to turn out.
Hmm. Why is marketing so attractive to you? Why do you like it so much?
Initially I didn't. So before I started studying it, but I wanted to start a business at some point. I didn't exactly know what business I wanted to start. I just kind of knew I was interested in it. Like entrepreneurship kind of seemed like the right path for me. And then I ended up taking this online course by Ramit Sethi. I guess he's more known now for like the personal finance stuff, but he also does like some business growth courses. And so a couple some years ago, when I was like sophomore in college, I purchased one of his courses, and then one of the first things in there was like on how to grow an online business. And like one of the first things in there was this set of mindsets that you need to have. And the one that like really stuck with me and like changed my life was that, you know marketing is about connecting someone who needs something with the thing that they need. And
Mm.
that just like blew my mind, because I realized at that moment I had been thinking of marketing as like some kind of necessary evil type of thing, where
Mm.
maybe you connect somebody who kind of wants or kind of barely needs this thing, and you're trying to convince them to buy it. But now I started like shifting my mindset to, um, there is a person out here who this thing that I'm selling is going to be absolutely life changing. It was made for them, and this is why the business exists. And this person has this problem that's affecting their life. And as a marketer, it's my job to connect those two things and then tell them the truth as accurately as possible, so that they find the thing that they need, and that makes their life better.
Mm.
So that's what made me really passionate about it. That made me go and actually study marketing. I changed
Mm.
my major to marketing in college, both to prepare me for entrepreneurship and like with the goal of, working in marketing for some years, so I could build up, my skill set in that area. And I'm just like really passionate about it.
Wow, so it took that one course to really change your whole perspective. That's
Oh no, not
fascinating.
even the one course, just like one video within that one course, and like one
Yeah.
what that one note within that one video. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, and it's interesting your initial perception of marketing. It does seem that a lot of companies kind of undervalue marketing. They put more stress and more importance on the actual sales. Would you
Mm.
agree?
I mean, I think it comes from where the business owner kind of got started, like whatever their
Mm,
mindset was. Like if they're like a technical product person, then that's where they're spending their time. And then, if they come from like a sales background, then that's where they're spending their time. And I think there is maybe a bias like overarching in the industry. Somebody's gonna have to fact check this and see. But it feels like, this is just my impression. So that's why I said you got to back this up with some data, but it feels like there's more companies that lean more heavily on the sales side, especially B2B, than
mm,
on the marketing side. But that can vary from individual company to other individual company. uh why is that? Eh, Maybe because it feels like you need to make a sale in order for your business to stay afloat, and so they're like, laser focused on profit metrics. I don't want to make too many assumptions here. This is just like best guesses I can make off the top of my head.
mm. What is branding?
Oh, good question. Okay, let me recite a textbook. uh, I think branding is generally when you try to get an impression in a potential customer's mind about what your business is about. And that's very general, but if you think of it's more about like, what is your company known for, so you can make kind of that quick association in your mind, like to refer other people or when something's right for you. So um Coca-Cola, when you think of those words, then you're thinking of like this brown fizzy liquid that's very sweet, and I drink it at, parties and social gatherings. So if I'm about to host a party or social gathering or go to one, oh, I need to pick up a pack of Coca-Cola. So it can be a useful tool, I think, for um focusing your marketing efforts around intentionally creating this image of what you do best. I think that's the most like idealized version of branding. Like if there's a perfect, like back to marketing, if there's a perfect person out there for your product, who is that person and what do they want? And then how can I communicate that to them through, you know, um getting an impression in their mind of what my company is about that'll stick with them until they're ready to buy it.
Yeah, because branding doesn't necessarily turn into sales,
No.
right? So for a lot of startups, they don't want to do the Super Bowl ad, right? They
Yeah.
don't want to do big, banners in New York City or in any Houston, any cities, right? They want salespeople to go on, knock on doors and businesses and leads, etc. Does branding fall under marketing?
It generally does, yes. um in terms of like the shift in focus, I think different companies, I'm talking like very much in general here, like these are just heuristics. They tend to focus on different things at different stages. And I'm not saying that they should, but um I'm saying that the thought process of why they're doing this makes sense to me generally, which is, at the beginning, in an ideal world, you're really just focused on making your customers happy and making sure that you have a good product. Because if you don't do that, then it doesn't matter how good the marketing is. How can you connect somebody to something that they need if nobody needs your product? So you gotta fix that first, and then you move on to the next stage, which is how do I communicate that well enough to get those people to buy it, and then so that ends up being the sales aspect, and to some extent the marketing as well, because the marketing is just going to be understanding those customers well enough to be able to say that and then put it everywhere that's associated with you and attract new people in.
Hmm.
So that's the sales and marketing piece of it. And then, over time, once you get your business to a place where you've got the customers coming in and it's less about, you know, like faster growth and it's more about being known and like reaching bigger audiences, when you're not so worried about money anymore. Like, I doubt Coke is worried about money. That's like, as or at least not on a micro scale, because just reaching out to more people isn't gonna really help them much at that point. They have to reach people who aren't their direct customers but who might know their direct customers, or
Hmm.
they have to be top of mind for people who don't want to buy it right now but get people to remember them so that they're ready to buy when they are going to buy, or they've got to get people to keep buying afterwards. And how do you do that? So the focus changes because the needs of the business changes over time. So I think in a perfect world, maybe you'd be able to do all of those things in rapid succession, and you'd really know that how important marketing is right from the beginning. But you really can't do if you're just starting with a brand new product. You can't do any marketing or branding until you know what who the customers are and what they want, and you have a
Hmm.
product that matches that.
Are we continually being marketed to, Keirra?
I mean, yes, and not just in the advertising sense. Like, I if marketing is just connecting somebody to what they need, then you just having a conversation with your friend about literally any topic and them recommending something to you is marketing. Or them talking about, how they interacted with something else. That's marketing, whether they realize it or not.
Hmm. 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 And then, of course, the over the top would be as we're browsing or when we're on social media, they're watching what we're doing and they're recommending products based on, what we like and what we watch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And another angle. Yeah. I once heard this one case study where it was in a university and you talked about Coca-Cola. They got a Coca-Cola soda machine. They just put it by itself. And it was averaging like $100 a day. And then a couple weeks later, they put a Pepsi machine next to it. And both machines then started averaging $200 a day.
Hmm.
And what they were saying was, when there's one Coca-Cola machine by yourself, the question the consumer asks is, am I going to have a soda or not? If the answer is no, they don't get anything. But when there's Coke and Pepsi, they say, am I going to have a Coke or a Pepsi? So the decision to make the soda is already done. The question is, which one are they going to have? And it actually increased sales.
Mm-hmm.
Surprising?
Well, perhaps. I mean, I tend to approach things through a scientific method sort of lens, so that seems like one possible explanation for what's happening. I would like to see more research to see if that's really the reason, like against other variables. Because another variable that comes to mind with that story is maybe having two machines there attracted the people who wanted Coke and the people who wanted Pepsi. So there are
Mm.
more people coming to that area now. And then that area is more of a hotspot of activity where people are just, it's instead of it being the Coke machine, maybe it's the vending machine area,
Mm.
and then more people go there and then more people have options.
Very interesting. And the future of marketing, especially with AI, what are your thoughts there, Keirra?
Um, it's terrifying and exciting all at once.
Hmm.
So, it can AI is like any other tool, in my opinion. So, I mean, a pencil or a pen or a desktop computer, those can be used for good or for bad, or usually some mix of both. And so, you know, AI is just another tool to, get things done, to potentially improve your life. It's improved my life just using, Chat GPT over the past year.
Me too.
It's sped up my marketing processes. It's helped me write, uh, uh, applications for things. Like applications. I'm applying to a grant right now for my nonprofit, which is a whole totally separate thing, and it's helping me draft things. Um, but it's good for that lens. I even use it to figure out what recipes I'm going to make for dinner, and
Hmm.
that reduces food waste. I figured out how to
Hmm.
use a leftover can of pumpkin puree that I had from Thanksgiving, but
Hmm.
but at the same time, it's a powerful tool, and so anything that's extremely powerful can be used for a very powerful good purpose or a very powerful bad purpose, and then the onus is on the user to figure out which direction are we going to use it. um and so it opens up a lot of opportunities that have never existed before, like for really, really good things beyond even what I've just mentioned, but also really, really bad things. So it could be
Hmm.
used to now you have like AI that's subtitling in lots of different languages and making things more available to people, who have hearing issues, or who are, and making content available to people who don't speak a certain language as their first language. But at the same time, it's being used to generate like total misinformation. Probably, I mean, if you can just write a whole college essay or an entire blog post like directly from ChatGPT, and it's just creating information, and you don't know which information's right or wrong, and you're not fact checking it, and anybody
Hmm.
can do that in the entire world, then how do we know if anything that we're looking at online now is actually accurate? That you don't have that barrier anymore to um you know accuracy, putting out good, accurate, fast information. Uh so and I could wax poetic about this for like a full year, but generally, it's the onus is on the individual, and like on the systems, like the people creating the AI companies, the people using the AI companies, the companies using the AI systems. Like all of those would have to be approaching it through a lens of what harm could this do to society, and how can I minimize that upfront, and then how can I make sure that this is being used for a good purpose, and then not just thinking that, but like creating policies within your organizations to handle that and to navigate people through the ethics of AI as these different issues come up. And so if you do that, then society will lean more towards having really powerful tools that really help people a lot. If you don't do that, it'll all even out, and there will be some really good and really bad case studies.
Hmm. We shall see. We're going to keep a close eye on it. How can podcasting help B2B marketing?
It helps in a lot of ways. And in the B2B landscape specifically, depending on what you're selling, B2B could just be, a platform like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or something like that, where you're selling this like $10 a month kind of software product to like millions of small, medium, and large businesses. But then it can also be, um, where you're selling a multi-million dollar product with the custom features, and you have this huge complicated sales and buying cycle. And um yeah, I forgot the original question now.
Podcasting. Why is podcasting good for B2B?
Yes, podcasting. So podcasting is helpful to both of those things. So it's helpful like on the smaller individual level, because it can help a lot with the branding side of things. Um, and it can also help with like the larger deal making process. It can help reduce the friction at all of those points. So one thing I brought up earlier was like making sales like on an individual level, or how difficult sales is, um, with especially like a long, huge, icky B2B buying cycle. And there is a way to use podcasting as a networking tool so that it reduces sales pressure. So what do I mean by that?
Hmm.
So if you are a if you're a company, you sell a product, it's worth, I don't know, $100,000 per deal, then what you could do is you could reach out to most your best potential customers, or that market of potential customers, and you could say, hey, I'm doing a podcast on this industry, something that's very relevant to you, something that helps your working life be better. And so then you can talk to those people, one on one on your podcast, and then they get a good interaction with your company. They're aware of you, they know who you are, and you get an opportunity to talk to a decision maker in a way that benefits them, right? Because you both, regardless of whether they ever buy anything from you, you both walk away with a piece of content that's beneficial to both of your businesses. So that's like a level one benefit. And then
Hmm.
you're also getting to talk to people in a low pressure way that's not you making a sale to them. And so sometimes, if you have that low pressure sales approach, just generally, uh, then that takes the pressure off of the conversation. It's not a sales conversation. It's just, I get to talk to somebody. But now you get to talk to somebody who is probably a decision maker you would never have had access to.
Hmm.
So it can really be a powerful tool for elevating your network. And some of those people are going to be interested in buying. And then that personal connection can shorten the sales cycle, because
Hmm.
you're accessing people who are higher up faster and easier without turning them off or off putting them or trying to force them into some sales conversation. And then the people who are just genuinely interested in a good fit for your product at that time or your service at that time, they already know who you are. And they don't have to go through a long chain of decision makers, because they might already be close to the top or at the top of that buying chain.
So you're saying actually interview prospects on the podcast.
Yeah, that's one strategy. There are multiple different ones, and it just depends on what you're trying to do. And you can combine different strategies. So you can interview prospects, you can interview even previous customers. You could do coaching style podcasts. You could do podcasts that are aimed less at networking and more for branding purposes, which is usually better for like a low low average order value type of products, like interviewing your potential customers. If the deal is only going to be $10 and they could have just looked at it on your website because it's an easy buying process, probably isn't
Hmm.
going to be that helpful. But if you just go out and do a podcast that interviews people in your industry, or you talk about your own um, thought process, as the CEO or as a representative of the marketing or sales team, then people listen to that podcast and then they learn useful things, or they get infotainment. Usually it's going to be informational if it's a business podcast, and then that lets more people know about you outside of a sales conversation. But then the people who are in that audience who do need what you are offering will know that you exist, and they'll come to you first because
Hmm.
they know you, like you, and trust you at that point because they're in your audience.
So you become a trusted advisor in the area.
Right. And the one of the people who are standing out in your niche, because podcasting is kind of at this inflection point of like uh enough people know about it, but not enough people are using it yet to where like
Hmm.
the market is saturated with podcasts. So, if you tried to do a Joe Rogan style podcast, that's just general, and that's not going to really benefit you very much. But um trying to aim for 1 million listeners probably isn't going to be useful for a B2B context, but trying to aim for like 1,000 or 2,000 people who are all within your industry. Like think like an industry conference level. If you're
Hmm.
the person who's putting on the industry conference, everybody knows about you and everybody thinks you're prestigious, right?
Very interesting. It's I haven't I started getting a more appreciation in marketing about 10, 15 years ago. I started my company back in the 90s, and I just love it. And I love to hear passionate people like yourself talk about it. So when I started my business in the 90s, Keirra, I was working way too hard and I wasn't paying attention to myself. I was drinking too much soda, pizza late at night, not paying attention to my health and diet, got myself up to 340 pounds. And the doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So I spent
Hmm.
the next 6 to 7 months, I lost about 130 pounds and kept it off. It's been about 20 years. And people ask me how I did it, how I keep it off. I always say discipline. There's no secret. I just say discipline. That's how I lost all the weight. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Keirra Woodard.
Um, hmm. Well, this is kind of a tricky subject because I think towards I've been through different stages of being like a freelance marketer. So, year one was very much like, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur now. I'm so excited. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm just gonna make some sales and somehow I'll be rich. Uh, and then year two was like, this isn't working. I really need to buckle down. I need to get focused because I'm not giving up until this is done. And then year three was just like, I really need to take a step back because it's gotten to a point where, and I touched on this earlier, the sales conversations, if you put a lot of pressure on yourself to make a deal, it turns people off, and then it makes you, even if it's not off-putting to other people, it's just kind of like your entire life just kind of gets oriented around, are people going to buy
Mm.
from me today? So year three going into year four was just like taking a step back and just kind of reevaluating, like, why did I even want to do this in the first place? And when I really interrogate my motivations, it wasn't about making as much money as possible as fast as possible. It was about, oh, I really just like entrepreneurship. I like this idea of building a business. I like this idea of being a leader. And I like I want to have a purpose behind that that's just beyond, oh, I made X number of dollars this year. I want the purpose to be, this is the cool thing that I built that really is going to have an impact on society. I hope. Uh, and so, yeah, it was more of a take a step back, remove all of the things in my life that would create pressure to make sales, and then just refocus the entire business on what do I really want to talk about and what's going to build towards this bigger vision of building this product that's going to help society.
Hmm. And how does discipline play a role in that? Do you consider yourself
um
disciplined?
I probably would have considered myself disciplined like 1 year ago, when I was just in this like hyper focused mode. But then I've just recently gotten into like mindfulness and meditation. And
Hmm.
then I've had some like spiritual epiphanies that kind of made me realize like my ego was too wrapped up in being this conceptual identity of, oh, I'm a disciplined person. Oh, I wake up at 8:45 a.m. every morning
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
work for X number of hours that somewhat approximate like a 9 to 5 worker. And like, once I remove, when the meditation really helps you like drill down into like what you actually care about, because it just kind of removes all of this, what I like to call mind trash. and
Hmm.
and it lets you like connect with what you like. Why do you exist? What do you really care about? And once that mind trash is gone and all of the layers of ego identity are gone, what do I actually care about? What's left is just
Hmm.
me waking up, being relaxed and happy, and focusing on something I love, and focusing not just on the work aspect of what I love, building this business, but also all of the other pieces of my life that I really care about, like my friends and family and my health and my hobbies and things like that. So I don't know if disciplined is the right word for that anymore. Like, because I think I'm outside of that disciplined mindset now. It's more like I'm just vibing.
Hmm. I may submit that even to vibe and even to get these epiphanies, and to kind of refocus takes a certain amount of discipline. I might assert that depending on your viewpoint.
I might have to disagree with that.
Explain.
Because I wasn't expecting or trying to get to a spiritual epiphany. I wasn't trying to get better at meditation. I was just like feeling some kind of emptiness, or like some kind of questioning or soul searching, like, why am I even doing this? And then just happened to come across like a book a friend recommended to me called The Power of Now. And then it has like some mindset, spiritual stuff, and like some meditation. And then I just kind of took walks in the park and like listened to that on audio and like just did it without expecting anything. And then it led to all of those like realizations. And then beyond that, oh, you would think, oh, well, if you're trying to grow your business in order to make an impact on society, or if you're trying to take care of your health, then don't you need some kind of specific schedule and like some kind of disciplined mindset? But I kind of realized that when I took all of those things away and just like was comfortable just kind of laying in bed for a whole morning or afternoon, or just like sitting outside looking at trees or taking a walk in the park meditating, then like all of those ego oriented routines I had built up didn't feel so important anymore. And
Hmm.
like, if it led to a bad outcome, like, oh, I'm eating too much sugar right now because I didn't think too hard or worry too much about, what this is going to do to my health. And it's like, oh, well, I don't know. I care about my health. I care about I care about feeling good, but I also care about eating sweets. So let me just make a plan on how I'm going to be able to do both of those things. And then we'll see where that goes. And then if it leads me in a better direction, great. And if it doesn't, we'll just change the plan. So it's like there's no worry or fear in between figuring out what to do and like implementing it. Just all the days in between, you just like go back to meditating and then you see if it worked out.
Hmm. Very interesting perspective. Uh, so your definition of discipline is something that's kind of structured and rigid, is
Yeah.
what I'm getting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. What motivates you, Keirra?
Mm, without getting woo woo, a love for all of humanity and creation.
Hmm.
I don't think I can say that without being woo woo. So let's put it in 21st century terms. Let's say that I'm motivated just by the idea of helping people, and the idea of just like living my life to the fullest. And so those things just kind of tend to be a byproduct of not being so anxious or clingy to a specific uh identity or a specific outcome, and more just, you know, paying attention to the people around you and what their needs are. And like, um, you can have a goal. Like, I have some really big overarching goal for how I want to change society through my business, and how I want to like improve the way that people do business with each other. But it's like at the same time, like I'm working towards that, but like if it doesn't work out, like it's fine. Like it's not that serious.
Hmm. Hmm. So then, how do you measure success given that motivation?
um I have a question for you. Do you have to measure success? What happens
No.
if you don't measure success?
Excuse me. So you don't measure it.
Yeah, what's the point of measuring success? What is success?
Exactly. What is success? Then you'd have to measure it to know what it is,
Yeah.
and you don't.
No.
Very
Like,
interesting.
I don't have to become anything. I just already am. I
Hmm.
think that was maybe one of the cruxes of my spiritual epiphany. I don't have to become this person who, I don't know, makes X number of dollars and lives in this specific place and does this specific thing and has this specific, family structure or whatever. It's just like I don't have to become all of those things. I just You ever just looked up into the sky and like looked at some clouds, and then there's like a skinny one, and like there's some fast moving ones, and then there's a large puffy one, and then there's a dark gloomy one, and they're all just kind of up there. Like which one of those clouds is the best cloud?
There's no answer to that. Best is
So
ambiguous.
so which one of these human beings on the planet Earth is the best human?
Again, it's ambiguous. So you think success is ambiguous?
Yeah.
But
it,
you say you're motivated by helping people. So wouldn't success naturally be when you help people?
I mean, that was the non woo woo framing of what I'm motivated by. I think I'm just motivated to exist, but then I don't think that the 21st century American mindset is ready for that.
But
So
who
let's
cares
just say
about
that,
that? Let's
yeah.
talk about you. So existing to you is success. There's no wrong answer here, right? It's just
It's more like success doesn't exist because there is no there's not really a goal to begin with. To be successful at a goal, you have to set a goal. But what if I don't
hmm,
have a goal? What if my goal is just to be a cloud? There is no right or wrong one, so there is
hmm.
no there is no metric of success.
Very interesting. And so when you're working with a client, certainly they give you goals as to what they want. You have to achieve those. That's very different. But so you can mark a successful campaign or a successful project. Those are specific metrics. But here we're talking about something that, quite frankly, could change every day, every hour, what you might feel is your own success.
Yeah. I mean, or I'm just not even applying the concept of success to my life anymore.
Mm. Hmm.
Now, if you drill down to a specific project that I'm working on with a client, then there are things that I will generally try to be, which is like honest and trustworthy and have integrity to the specific objectives I promised them. And I'll generally try to align the people and projects I'm working with this kind of bigger overarching vision of like where I want my business to go. And but that's just motivated by like care for humanity or like some sort of compass of conscience that kind of leads you in the direction of um, this person exists and their project exists and other people exist that will be affected by this potentially. So generally, being compassionate and having integrity to it is a way to benefit all of those things as much as possible. So you could say that that's maybe the driving motivator.
Fascinating. Keirra, thank you so much. I really, really enjoy your perspective. Very, very much so.
Awesome.
I really enjoy it. Anybody listening, how can we get in touch with you? Thank you so much for your time today. How can we get in touch with you? Anybody listening?
You can send me an email, kw@forwardlaunchdigital.com. You can also message me on LinkedIn, which unfortunately I only sometimes check. But if you said you were on Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, then I will definitely reach back out to you.
Very good. And it's forwardlaunchingdigital.com is kind of the main kind of spoke or hub to start everything.
Forwardlaunchdigital.com.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I misspelled that. Yeah. Forwardlaunchdigital.com. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
No dashes. We'll
Nope.
make sure to put it all in the show notes. Keirra, thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed the conversation.
All right. I really enjoyed talking to you too. Thanks so much, Joe.
You be well. Bye now. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration.